If I give you the time, the tools, and the training, and we still can't accomplish our goals, then I need to look at the talent.
Welcome to BodyShop Leaders, the podcast where we bring you insights, strategies, and stories from the collision industry's top minds. I'm Daniel Burkholder, and today we're talking about what great leadership really looks like in a shop environment. My guest is someone who's lived every side of this industry, from the spray booth to the boardroom. Rod Cahoy is a business development manager at PPG Industries with nearly 4 decades in collision repair. He's helped countless shops boost performance, streamline their refinish operations, and lead with purpose. Rod's story isn't just about paint and process, it's about people, progress, and leadership in action. So let's dive in. Rod, it's a pleasure to have you here on the podcast.
Daniel, thank you for having me. I'm honored that you asked me to be on your podcast. And you just made me really sound old by saying 4 decades, but that's okay. That's called wisdom, that's right.
Yes, sir. It is wisdom at its best. So, Rod, let's rewind and start at the beginning because I know your path through this industry says a lot about how leadership gets built over time. So, take us back to, I believe, 1987, your first years as a collision repair technician. What did those early days teach you about craftsmanship, teamwork that are still with you today?
Yeah, great question. It's a long time ago, so I really got to put my thank you hat on. So, how it actually started, Daniel, was I was in high school in a small town in Nebraska. And I needed an after school job, right? And we had limited opportunities, but I had a gentleman that went to our church that owned his own body shop. So that gave me the opportunity to go to work for him as a job. And then believe it or not, it turned into a career. I'll be quite honest with you. I wasn't very good when I first started, but I don't know if anybody actually is really good, right? I just kept going. Again, it was an after school job that turned into a career. So I was able to figure out a lot of things in the industry. Now you're talking back in the late 80s where cars are a lot different than they are now.
Right.
So it was challenging task for me to figure things out in as far as a technician. And back then we did combo work, which means you did body work and you did the refinishing part of it. Always gravitated towards the refinishing part of it, but I was able to figure out the body side of it as well. But the biggest thing that I could tell you is hard work and attitude goes a long ways in this industry. And that's really what I did is I just stuck with it and grinded it out and showed up every day and figured things out and turned into a nice 12-year career on the floor, which 37, 38 years later, I'm still in the industry. So it's been a good start, I guess you could say, for that opportunity back in 1987.
Did you have any interest in cars before you started there as a high schooler?
Great question as well. I'll be honest with you. I wanted to work with children. I wanted to work with kids. I love kids. I have my own kids, I have a big family. I want to do something with kids, but I wasn't a good enough student back in the day, to be honest with you. I was also a realistic person, right? What I wanted to do and what I ended up doing was two different things. So I wanted to be either a teacher or a social worker with kids or something like that. Well, there wasn't no such thing as an after school job with that. So I took my after school job as being a body technician and made a career out of it. Almost 40 years later, I developed a love for the industry, to be honest with you.
That's very fascinating. So, somewhere along the line, Rod, you eventually transitioned from the shop floor to business development. What was that biggest mindset shift in moving from actually fixing cars to helping shops grow?
Yeah, that's another great question, Daniel. I had to think through this one a little bit. So it wasn't really just, I wouldn't say it was a jump right from being a technician to a BDM. I don't know if anybody has the true skills to do that. It was a transition that was over time. That is technician for 12 years. So I had a great career, learned a lot, understand the trade itself as being a technician. But I also had aspirations to do more. And again, I wanted that teaching, that desire to want to do that just kept burning in me. I really went from that technician role to being a sales technician or a manufacturer's technician rep. I did that for a while. Actually, I started my career with DuPont. So that's where I
Mm.
started my career with DuPont. And then I moved into a sales role because I was good with people, and had a knack for that. And then that eventually turned into a business development role, which I am today. I'll be quite honest with you. The hardest thing to go from being a technician on the floor to being in a role like I'm in today as business development is when you're a technician, it is physically exhausting. You work hard, right? It's a hard job to get up every morning and work 8 to 10 hours on a concrete. You're mentally exhausted. Your body goes through a lot. And then when you're a sales role slash business development role, helping people in our collision repair, you're constantly learning new things in the industry. You're researching things in the industry. You're becoming a student of the industry, not just of the trade, but of the industry as a whole. So you're
Mhm.
mentally exhausted. So I guess I could honestly tell you the big shift for me was the going from exhaustion of physical exhaustion to the exhaustion, mentally exhaustion, and really digging my feet in and learning more about every aspect of the collision repair, not just how to repair the cars, because repairing the cars is how we get there. But there's so much more to this business than just repairing the car.
Interesting. Yeah, that's amazing. That shift that you made from the physical hard work to basically mental hard work, using your brain and learning through that. There's a lot of wisdom there. Rod, my next question is somewhat of a twofold question. You've been in the industry for almost 40 years. How have you seen leadership in shops evolve? And then the next portion of that question is what separates the ones who adapt and thrive from those who are struggling?
Yes. So this is again another great question. I appreciate the thought process that you've put into this. So leadership has changed dramatically, I feel, over the years, right? And some people or most successful shop owners in today's world didn't necessarily come from the floor. They weren't technicians or they aren't technicians. I'm not saying a lot of good ones aren't technicians, that there is absolutely a lot of those, but the most successful ones I see most likely probably weren't technicians, had some different kind of background. And it could have been in the industry, but they might have been in the office writing estimates and dealing with the administrative portion of that. So I think that is a piece of it. And the second part of your question, I'll be honest with you. And the reason why I say some of that stuff is I could look back at myself back in 1987 when we did things in the shop. And I'll be honest with you, there really wasn't a ton of structure in place. And the processes were, hey, just figure this out and make it work. That mindset has to shift. And the ones who have shifted to that to understand that the people and the processes and especially the culture, if we get those three things down, understanding your people, give them the respect that they need, help them with the things that they need, put processes in place and develop that culture, I think that's the shift that we're seeing or the successful business owners are seeing moving forward, or what I've experienced over the past, especially over the last 10 years.
That's such a great answer. So, people, process, and culture. And it's interesting to hear you say that because some of our previous guests, I hear them saying the same thing, like things like, we're in the people business and those kinds of things. So that fits very well with what you've seen as well in the years you've been in the industry is that shift into developing our people, building processes that work well for the shop and developing that culture. Rod, you get into a lot of shops, I'm sure of it, because you cover quite a large territory here in the Midwest. When you walk into a high performing shop, what do you notice right away? And do you mind telling us what their secret sauce is? Or maybe there is no secret sauce.
Yeah, this is actually a fun one, Daniel, because I see it all the time. One of the things that we get challenged in the industry is we don't have enough people, we don't have enough technicians, the shortage of employees, and all that. So when someone posts, whether it's on social media, or they'll make a post that says, "Hey, come to our body shop," and it has cars everywhere. You couldn't walk in between all the cars, and the parking lot is full. They are assuming we're busy, so we're in one of the top-notch shops. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're a top performing shop, right? I'm not saying that being busy is not a good thing, but when I walk into a shop, I recognize usually right away that they're lacking in processes, especially understanding the biggest process, which is throughput, right? Your work in process has to be balanced. If you have all these cars coming in and you have customers waiting for their car to be fixed, you're probably don't have the best model in place. And what I mean by that again is if you don't align your output with your input, you're going to have a lot of challenges, frustration, and unsatisfied customers. The customers who figure out the WIP part of it, the work in process, and balance that correctly are the ones that really get it. They also deliver the exceptional customer experience because at the end of the day, people buy from people, right? We want to make sure that we're giving them an exceptional customer experience. If they just have all these vehicles all over the place, you're just getting lost in the shuffle. Shop is balanced with their workflow. They're most likely going to deliver a much better experience to the customer. The technicians on the floor are going to be much happier too, because how many cars can a technician work on at one time? And the
Mm.
answer is one. So why does he need 5 cars in front of him? He can't work on all 5. He can only work on one at a time. The ones that are really good, I guess I'm going to say their secret sauce, Daniel, it's really understanding and having a good process to be able to understand what their input is, what their input needs to be to keep up with their output. It's really what it is.
Interesting. You make it sound so simple. And I guess in a sense it is simple, but yet it can be so challenging sometimes for shops to manage that WIP and that process of input output.
Yeah, very true. We're getting into a little bit off the track here, but this is why I like these conversations, right? 100% agree with you. It does sound, it's theory, right? What you and I are talking about is really theory, but until you put it into place, it's just theory. So taking that theory and put it into reality is where people struggle. People say, you make it sound easy. It is easy in a sense that you follow a process. I always say, what's worse, if you don't have a process at all, or if you have a process and don't follow it? My opinion, they're both the same, Daniel, right? So
Right.
so let's put a process in place and follow it. So there's the secret sauce, is that process. And it does sound easy, but it's because it's a process. All we got to do is follow it.
Right. And I know you've spent years of your life going into shops and helping them set up these processes and follow them. So you've seen it transform shops literally over the years. So it's interesting how shops struggle sometimes just to follow that process and stick with the process.
And the biggest struggle with them, to be honest with you, Daniel, is they don't know how to build that process, or they're struggling with understanding how to put that process. I can go back to me as a technician. I need 3 stalls here to work on cars so I could, oh, I did it. I just needed a better process to be able to get the one that I was working at in front of me to a completion state so I can move to the next. That's the hardest part, is understanding what process do I need to put into place to make sure it's a successful process.
I'd like to go into our next question, and we sort of led right into it. Every shop faces these bottlenecks in their workflow, in their people, their processes. What's one story where you helped a shop break through, let's say, a major challenge and just really turn it around?
Yeah. So first things first is I had the privilege with PPG, my current employer, to travel pretty much all over North America, all the way to Canada, all the way. I've covered all states. I think there was only 2 of them, Daniel, that I didn't get to the last 12 years. So had a lot of exposure. So to be quite honest with you, for me, it's learning from other people and the training I have had over these years of understanding this. So I sum it up in this. And this is, I follow this thing called the 4 T's, right? And the 4 T's go as this: time, training, and talent, right? So I'll put it in simple terms. If I give you the
Right.
time, if I give you the time, the tools, and the training, and we still can't accomplish our goals, then I need to look at the talent. But what
Mhm.
I just said, Daniel, is I said, I need to give you the time, the tools, and the training. So as a leader, if we don't do those first 3 things, we really can't blame our people. We can't say, you, Daniel, you did
Right.
this wrong. You didn't do this. Well, hang on a second. As a leader, I didn't
Right.
give that individual the time they needed to be able to understand it. I didn't give them the tools they properly needed to do this. And then lastly is the training piece of it. I go to shops all the time, all over, and they say, we don't have time for training. My question would be, how do you not have time for training? How do you not have time to understand? Because the vehicles have become incredibly complex, right?
Mm.
So since they've become complex, our process has become more complex. And if we continue to do the work the same way we've done it years past, it's going to pass us by. So we really need to stick to that principle of the four T's. And again, as a leader, if we skip one of those first three, good luck. Right. So that's where I really
Right.
learned. And one of the biggest stories I can tell you is I have a great friend that I was able to have the honor of working with um, back in 2017, we had a green belt, which is part of the business solutions, MVP business solutions stuff. And I was teaching a class in South Carolina. And a gentleman come in and he was in his 20s, right? So he's young enough to be my son. And he brought his staff with him of four people. And they were doing this outside of St. Louis in actually O'Fallon, Illinois. And his father owned the business and he was taking over the business. And he decided that he wanted to stay in the business and he wanted to grow and he knew there was a better way. So he attended our training, which was Greenbelt in 2017. And he took the concept of, again, what we taught and put it into place. And he's growing that business from, let's call it 3 million, Daniel. He has three locations now, doing about $12 million a year, which is a short period from 2017 to today. It's a $10 million growth. But he will honestly tell you it's all because of him understanding that there is a better way. And if we follow a process and we give our people the time, the tools, and the training, and then we can really ramp this thing up to be successful. So that was one of them that I'm really proud of. And to this day, him and I are really good friends and we stay in touch literally every day.
I love that story. You gave us so much value there, Rod. I think honestly, if somebody takes just those last 5 minutes that you gave us and runs with that of building their people, it'll change their shop exponentially for the better. Let's shift a little bit now into what PPG's got going on. PPG's been leading innovation lately with tools like Velocity and Moonwalk automation. How do you see technology like this changing the way shops lead and perform?
Yeah. So everybody wants to talk about the lack of people in our industry, right? The lack of technicians, the lack of just employees in general. What's the one that thing that you struggle with? Oh, it's finding people, it's finding good people. I wouldn't say I can disagree with them, but in some sense, I do disagree with them because there's a lot of people out there that are really hardworking people that if we give them the time, the tools, the training, we can help them and understand this. So what PPG, so another thing that I think that we really need to look at in this industry is the AI portion of it. But let's go back to your question with the things that let's talk about the moonwalk for a second. The moonwalk is a wonderful, in fact, just installed another one this week, actually. So we have several of them. We have over 3,000 of them across the globe. Here in the Midwest, we've really taking that technology and people are really starting to see the value of it. So I'll use that as a little bit of an example. If we have a shortage of technicians, so why don't we take advantage of automation? So one of the things that the automation is the paint mixing of technicians to stand over a scale.
Right.
He does what he needs to do. Okay, it takes 10 minutes. What if we had a automated system that you just put in the information you need, loaded the toners, you walked away and can go over and start prepping on the next car or finalizing the vehicle that you were just working on and let a system mix it for you. That's the real value of tools and innovation that PPG brings to people. We just launched another product at SEMA this week, actually. It's called the Mix and Shake. Again, another automated system to help customers, especially technicians, instead of standing there hand mixing their mix after the machine or themselves has mixed it, getting all the toners to mix equally to make sure we have a good, precise color match. Why don't we take that process away and let a machine do that as well? Technology is not replacing people. It's helping people get better and helping them become more efficient. So
Right.
that's what we need to look at is how can that be help to customers to make them more efficient, not to be a hindrance. So really that's those two things. And then our MVP business solutions training that we have is by far some of the best in the industry. So if people take advantage of those training modules as well, we have a lot of stuff also online, Daniel. It's a digital world that we live in, right? So digitally, we could definitely look at some of the things that we have there. And then AI is becoming very important in our industry. In fact,
Yes.
shops are using AI to scrub estimates.
Right.
Let it look at your estimate to understand if you're missing things, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of forward thinking things that we need to not be afraid of and understand that they're here to help us, not hinder us. And the last thing that you brought up was velocity. So velocity is a new paint line that we've come up with here in North America to really go after the shops that are really cost cautious, not necessarily quality conscious, just really cost cautious, right? It is a mid-tier product, not in the far as quality, but in regards to the cost of the product.
Interesting. So I think you hit on an important note there. You said about how technology, we don't need to be afraid of it. And I think we embrace it as a way to help our people be better, not necessarily to replace people, but if there's a shortage, let's leverage technology to help our team players perform at their max potential.
Absolutely. Yeah, technology is something that we need to definitely take advantage of.
Yeah.
Again, not be afraid of it.
Rod, you've said in the past that progress comes from partnering with shops, not just selling to them. What does that actually look like in practice, and how can leaders bring that mindset into their own teams?
Yeah, so this is another philosophy I had. None of us like to be sold to, Daniel, right? We want to work with people that we can trust, that we develop
Mhm,
friendships with. I got many people in the industry that are customers, right? And
mhm.
it's because I've earned that trust with them over time. And that's really the biggest piece to me is that trust and that being an advisor to them, not someone who doesn't listen to them, someone who listens to what their concerns are, builds that trust over time, and it needs to work the same way in the on the shop floor. We need to have we need to have that trust in our technicians and in our people, either right. So they want to have that trust in that leadership of whatever shop they're in. And so that really comes down to culture, right? So we need to really help with that. So my philosophy was, Daniel, I never really wanted to be the person that says, oh, this guy, he's good. He just drops off paint and he goes away. I don't want to be that guy, right? I want to sell people paint, but I also want to help them because if we, as in PPG, are able to help them, that's our goal, right? We want to sell them paint, but we want to make sure they're successful and we can help them sell more paint by getting more cars through their system. My opinion is people buy from people and people work for people they want to work with.
Right. No, that's incredible advice. We all buy from people we know, like, and trust. And when you build that kind of relationship, that kind of partnership through partnering with them, it's good for everybody.
So I'll follow up with this on that. I want people to look at PPG or us as a business partner. I don't want them to call us their vendor. I want to say my business partner is Rod Cahoy from PPG. That to me is very valuable because we're in this together.
Yes.
And I want to make sure that whatever we do for them, they also have exceptional customer experience with us as PPG, not just dropping off paint.
Love that kind of attitude. That's amazing. So, Rod, moving on to the next question I have is you've helped build training hubs, business development centers for shop owners. Why is continuous learning such a big deal for long-term performance?
Yeah. So another big question, and if people don't realize that, they're probably in the wrong trade, right? Because the industry is never standing still, right? Insurance, and there are some things that I'm going to go back to my four T's again, Daniel, right? We need to understand continuously learning is the biggest thing. But first of all, we have to have the right learning, right? So we got to stick with that. In my opinion is, again, this is only opinion based. It's a question that you have somewhere. It goes back to the 4 T's of time, tools, training, and talent, right? So I need to make sure I do those first 4 T's to be able to invest the training to be able to help our customers succeed. So not any different in the technology or the advancement of vehicles, right? If you think about how advanced vehicles become over the last few years, you don't become a student of that repair. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that have changed. So that it's the same thing when it comes to the administrative part of our business. Things have become really expensive, right? So we need to make sure we're training our people and have processes in place and all those things to make sure we're capitalizing and being profitable moving forward. Continuous improvement and continuous learning, I don't believe it's an option anymore. I think it's a mandatory thing to be successful moving forward.
It reminds me of something you said about 10 minutes ago, where you said how you hear shop owners say, well, we don't have time to train. And your thought is, how do you not have time to train? Isn't that so true? And I think, like you said, continuous learning is mandatory in the very fast evolving industry that we work in currently. What's one emerging trend or shift in the industry that you think shop leaders really should be paying attention to right now?
Yeah. So again, another great question, Daniel. I run some performance groups also with PPG, and we try to keep it pretty high level. We don't get like into the weeds of forensic financials, and we do that for a reason. We want to make sure we're helping people as being business partners and bringing them process improvements because that's what we feel is important. But we do look at the 4 KPIs, right, in a collision center. So we'll look at obviously our labor, we look at our parts, we look at our paint material, and we look at our sublet. And if you look at those 4 buckets, Daniel, the smallest bucket of all of them is the paint material bucket. Guess who I work for? I work for PPG. And in some senses, they feel like that's the biggest bucket they have, which is not true. It's about 5% of their business. Now that's sales, right? Or excuse me,
Right.
that's their cost. Their
Sure.
sales is different, but their cost is now that's paint and material. I only sell paint, right? We need to look at things as how do we break that down to make sure that we're profitable, right? Things have gotten expensive. We can all agree that labor is our biggest one as far as what we make money on, but technicians have become more expensive.
Mm.
The one thing that I want to make sure that people understand is yes, paint and material is expensive. So, what do we need to do to focus on that? Well, we need to itemize our process again, right? So, the old adage that I see, again, it's the same as it was, Daniel, believe it or not, it was in 1987. Industry has changed, things have changed, so that getting reimbursed for a dollar amount as a percentage of the paint hours, it doesn't work anymore. It wouldn't be any different than and then saying the average part, Daniel, is $150 and the average car takes 13 parts. So I'm going to give you $150 for 13 parts. That math doesn't add up. What if the headlight's $1,500?
Right.
Just blew
Right.
that budget. Same
Right.
thing has to go with paint and materials. So I highly suggest people to start itemizing that. There's tons of different resources out there for that. And the biggest one that I promote a lot is called Eagle MMS. They
Yes.
can really help your business. And
Yeah.
yes, it's only 5% of your cost of your business, but it's an important part of your business. You need to get paid for the things that you are doing. I can look at estimates still to this day, Daniel, and I see on there that they have a line item for $5 for seam sealer. You can't even buy the tip for $5, right? So the average seam sealer tube is around 70, 75, $80. What if it takes 2 tubes of that? You financially, you can't afford to continue to not itemize for that and get paid for it. So one of the things that I would highly recommend is itemizing your not just your paint material, but your billable body items that you're able to charge for because you're buying them and you're
Mm.
using them to put that car back to pre-loss condition. So itemization is a must also. It's not an option anymore. It's a must in this industry as well.
Very well said. Yeah. Times have changed. I love that illustration that you gave. I never thought about that. So it's like, oh, well, this car takes 15 parts. We're going to pay you $150 per part. Here's your parts allowance. I'd never thought about that. I mean, I grew up in the industry, so I'm just familiar with that. You get X amount of dollars for your paint materials multiplied by the amount of refinish time or by the amount of body time. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess and one of the some little things that we do, Daniel, and just to pigtail off that a little bit is why I use that analogy is that, again, in our performance group, we talk about all four of those KPIs and we talk about parts a lot, how parts are, they've become the number one thing on our KPI, right? It's about 40% of your total, the repair of the vehicle. And the average repair takes 13 parts. The average cost is
Wow.
$158. The math would work out the same, but it doesn't work. Does it
Right.
work on so that's just a simple analogy, but it's
Yeah.
something that resonates with people. So that's why I bring that up.
Yeah. I love that. What a change in the way of thinking about that. But it makes total sense. Love that. Well, Rod, when you think about your career and obviously the people that you've touched and that you've influenced, what do you hope your legacy says about leadership in this industry?
So you mentioned the word legacy, right? Leadership legacy. I don't know if I'll ever have a legacy. I don't look at me like that. And I greatly appreciate the question though, right? First of all, I'm a very big family guy, right? I have two boys. First thing I want people to remember me at, even if I'm in this industry, is man, that guy was a great dad. He talked about it his kids during our meetings, and now I get to talk about my grandkids. The first thing I want to, that whether it's in life in general, I just hope people remember me as being a great dad, right? Again, that's my legacy that I want
Amazing.
to leave. In regards to a legacy in the collision industry, I want to be someone that they say, yeah, that Rod Cahoy, he was the one that really listened to us and helped us through this. He didn't always say, hey, you need to do this. Do I have opinions? Of course I have opinions, right? But I want to listen and I want to help you come up with a solution to whatever problem that is keeping you up at night. I want to become the student of the industry that says, yes, I understand this stuff. And let me see if I can help you come up with a resource to be able to figure out what we have. I want my legacy to be, he was a good business partner to us. So I guess to answer your question, I just hope folks remember me as he lent a helping hand and he was a good business partner. And but most of all, he was a wonderful dad.
I love that. What a legacy. That is amazing. Well, before we wrap this up, we have this tradition here at Body Shop Leaders where our previous guest leaves a question for our next guest. And our previous guest actually left a bonus question as well. So we kind of have two questions here from our previous guest. So here we go. The first one is, where do you see the industry heading between OEM certifications and DRPs?
Man, I wish that instead of a camera right here, I wish this was a magic ball that I could twist and turn it and look through it.
Right.
Unfortunately, we none of us have that. So
Right.
great question. And if you would have asked me that question 5 years ago, Daniel, I would have said, man, if you don't jump on OEM certifications, you're going to be left in the dark. Do I believe that today? I don't want to talk out of both sides of my mouth, but the answer is going to be yes and no, right? I always say it depends. What are you looking for? So I work in the Midwest, right? You live in the
Right.
Midwest. So there's a little bit of things like we do this thing called VIO, vehicles in operation. So if Daniel wanted to say, hey, Rod, could you run a VIO at my zip code in my location for a 10-mile radius? We said, okay, Daniel, here it is. Here's your VIO report. And if the first three top vehicles are Chevrolet, Ford, and Stellantis, which is Chrysler, Jeep, I would say, and they also have OEM programs, but I think the ones that are going to be really successful are the ones who limit or have specialty. So in other words, if you're going to join, I think it's a more of a marketing play, which is good. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. And I think again, that's part of training. So in other words, for you to be on one of those programs, you have to go through training. What's one of my four T's is training, right? And
Right.
the tools and so on and so forth. So you're covering two things right there. You're covering the tools part of it and you're covering the training piece. So I really like that. But if there's no advantage to a shop that goes through the cost and the time and the training and all that stuff, if they just give it, if there's no advantage to them, I'm really struggling to say that is the real reason why you should be on a program. Double fold question here. It's the OEMs versus DRPs. DRPs aren't going away, right? Am I a fan of DRPs? Again, the answer is it depends. It depends on which one you're on and what you have to follow. I want the I want customers to run their business. And again, if you're trying to scale, if you're trying to go from one store to 5 stores or 10 stores, I think it would be very challenging in today's world not to have DRPs. So do I think the shift is going to go from DRPs to only OEMs? Probably not in my career. Could that be eventually what's going to happen? Possibly, but we've talked about it for years that cars in today's world have the capability of understanding what damage they have, and they know everything's technology. They're a computer, right? They know the shops that are, so they could instantly say, we're towing this to a certified shop. Now, but who's paying the bill yet? So there's still the insurance company that's on that premium or on that policy. So at this point, until OEMs have their own insurance, I'm just not sure if that's how successful those programs are going to be. I think that shops that are on them are very successful and they should continue down that path of being on OEM certifications because you get a lot of upsides to it. But what do I see of going from, is one going to be replacing the other? Not in my time of my career, I don't believe. I think you still have to have that balance.
Love hearing your insight into that. So as I said, Roy, we were left with a bonus question, and here it is. We're kind of back to the processes. What is the most overlooked issue when it comes to process improvement you see, or what is the biggest issue people run into while running production?
I'm going to go back to the statement that I told you before, Daniel. It's what's worse, having a process that you don't follow or not having a process at all. So I'm going to get into the weeds a little bit. I hope that's okay.
That is perfectly
So
fine.
I told you before that I had the honor of traveling all over North America with PPG and training. One of the lessons that I learned, again, most of my lessons come from other people. It's not from me being this most creative person on earth, right? Is understanding from other people. And this particular shop had a process in place, Daniel, where they had on paper, right? And it was a quality control checklist. And that quality control checklist went from administrative piece of it. Hey, did you take all the photos you needed? And it goes over to pre-wash and body and all this stuff. The owner had some quality control issues when the customer was coming to pick up the car. So they had a process in place, right? And guess what was happening? So he was getting some quality control issues. So he decided to change something on the quality control checklist. He never announced this to people. He just put it into place. So he let that go for about 2 weeks, maybe 30 days. And then what he did is he called a mandatory meeting in his break room. Like, hey guys, I need you to come into my office. I got something really special for you. And so they all walk in the office and, man, what's going on? And I'm here at this time. I'm doing a consulting project and I happen to come in the day that he's doing this. So I'm in the office with him and I'm just standing back. And he goes, guys, you've been telling me something for the last couple of weeks here, last 3 weeks. And I want to honor what you've asked. So he has this bag, Daniel, and this might be above and beyond what you want to be on your podcast, but I'm going to go for it anyway. He had a bag and it had pink panties in it, right? This is real. It had pink panties in it. So he goes, one for you, one for you, one for you. And they're all looking at him like, Lee, what's wrong with you? Do you go off the rails here? He goes, you guys been telling me something for the last 3 weeks. He goes, you guys all know about our quality control process that we follow, that we check these things off because I'm paying you a lot of money to do the work correctly and I shouldn't have you check your own work. But you've been telling me, I wrote on here that I like to wear pink panties. And all of you, every single one of you, put a check mark by that answer. So you just put a scribble down and you just went through and that's how you did this. He goes, so you need to, you're the one that told me, I'm not saying you do, you're the one that told me this. So that's how I look at things. So they had a process in place, but they weren't following it.
Right.
So if that process doesn't work, Daniel, instead of you just not following it and not bringing it to my attention, tell me what we need to do to fix the process. So we're all rowing in the same direction, right? So let's fix the process that we have that's broken because I'm pretty sure none of you really want to wear pink panties, but that's what you told me. So let's fix it. So I guess the lesson here again is if you don't have a process in place, put one in place. But if you have one in place and they're not following it, figure out why so you can make things better moving forward as we go.
Yeah.
Weeds on that one.
Well, what a great answer, though. What a story. My goodness. I wasn't expecting that, but that was quite
It,
a creative
it,
way to
it
solve that problem. I made a real
yeah,
point, I'm sure.
yeah, it brings smiles to their face, just like what you did there, right? But he made it so real that I was like, this was one of the best ideas that he could do, and he did it in a way that kind of shamed him, but at the same time, right, you shamed yourself, right? So, guys, I'm
Right.
not, and he didn't yell, he didn't scream, he just handled it in a very matter of fact way, and guess what? It worked. They come up with a new way to follow their process.
Amazing. Well, this has been a great conversation, Rod, and I thank you for sharing your story, your wisdom. Before we sign off, though, if there's anyone who wants to connect with you, whether it's to learn more about PPG or about you, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Yeah, so I'm an open book, Daniel. I'll give you my cell phone number. I'll give you my email address. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I don't do a ton of postings, but I post on important things that I feel that I do, and that's like my performance groups and some of the innovative stuff that we talked about,
Yeah.
our moonwalk, our mixing, all those things. I'll post on that. But more than welcome to call me anytime. My cell phone number is 816-206-9556. They can call me, text me. I'm good. I'm a very good communicator either way. And then my email address is rcahoy@ppg.com.
Amazing. I appreciate your openness and your willingness to help the industry grow, help to grow these leaders that are among us and that are looking to grow. So I really appreciate that. And yeah, once again, just want to give you a thank you for coming on and sharing with us.
Yeah, I'm honored. I greatly appreciate it. I try to keep things very real, Daniel.
If you've been listening to Body Shop Leaders, powered by Body Shop Marketing, helping collision shops grow smarter. Huge thanks to Rod Cahoy from PPG for joining us and sharing not just technical insights, but the heart of leadership in our industry. If you've enjoyed this episode, share it with a fellow shop owner or team leader who's ready to take their performance to the next level. And don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Daniel Burkholder. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Daniel. Have a great day, everyone.